Hi everyone, welcome back to the Resilience Pod. You're here with me, your host Reena Singh. Thank you for tuning in today. Whether you are watching or listening, I am truly grateful. Now, today's guest on the pod is sat right next to me. As you can see, he is a true entrepreneurial visionary. Who showcased this exact skill at the age of 14, where he turned a simple business school project into a £1,200 profit-making startup by not only creating one school disco but three, much to his teachers' amazement and probably his parents, and then went on to have a very lucrative career in the construction and real estate industries. But he obviously came back to his true calling, which is being a visionary entrepreneur by creating a platform that enables organizations and yes, you, to save lives and careers. Wow, that is extraordinary. And it is with great, immense pleasure to welcome my next guest on the Resilience Pod, founder and CEO of Track My Risks, Matt Hodges-Long.
Hi.
Welcome.
Good to see you.
How are you?
I'm very well.
Good.
Yes.
Thank you for coming on today. So grateful.
I don't know how I'm going to live up to that introduction, though. I hope I'm not a crushing disappointment for
You
everyone.
won't be. We are really excited. I'm so excited to quiz you today. But as you know, before we get started into the nitty-gritties, how you've got the mood book in your hand.
I have, yes.
And guys, you know what all this is about. I'm going to ask Matt how he is feeling before the start of the interview. So he's just flicking through that book and he's going to tell us.
I think this one. Copacetic.
And what does that mean?
That's a very good question. I didn't know this morning. So it means A-OK and happy, I think.
Okay,
yes.
yeah.
Very satisfactory. So yes, I'm in a good mood today. So it's Friday. We're ready for the weekend.
Yes, thank you. So we're going to leave that behind us here, and then at the end we will ask Matt how he is feeling. So let's get your very first job, going back to your roots.
So first proper job,
Yeah.
if I can call it that, was in a construction company, in a small construction company in Hampshire. I'd sort of finished my A-levels and didn't know whether I wanted to go to university or not. So went looking for a job. And at the same time that happened, my car broke down.
Oh no.
And for an 18-year-old, with no transport, that's a bit of a problem. So I went into a job centre, which was we used to have in those days that people used to go to, and you looked at the wall of cards of jobs, and I saw one there that was fairly local, and it came with a van. And that was with a construction company. I thought, well, that solves the problem. It's work and it's wheels. Let's do it. So that's how I got into working in a construction company. It sort of went from there. So it wasn't by design, but luckily I was quite technical.
Yeah.
And sort of enjoyed the work of actually creating or being involved in creating buildings and tangible, real things. That most of them are still standing today, which is quite a shock for me. But that's where the whole construction thing started.
Wow, fantastic.
So that was my roots are in building buildings of various descriptions, lots of houses and things like that.
Yeah, and you still carry that kind of interest forward, don't you?
Yeah, still weirdly get involved in not in building anything specifically, but working with a lot of property companies and construction companies. It really helps to have that background of, especially in the whole risk and resilience world, that a lot of the risks relate to property, whether it's people's offices or manufacturing units or rail infrastructure or whatever it is. A lot of it is grounded in tangible sort of built environments, so it's useful to have that background to fall back on.
So you kind of accidentally fell into it, and then I understand from I was listening to a podcast you were on before, that you then started working in this industry and then you got sponsored to do a degree?
Yes, so I went away after a year and a bit of working in the first construction company. I thought it would be a good idea to go off to university. So I went off to, managed to get myself onto a construction degree course up in Leeds. Did the first year of that full time, and it was in that first summer holiday that I managed to get some work experience with Barratt Homes, the housing developer. And really enjoyed that over that summer period. Sort of got thrown in at the deep end managing a site down in Hampshire, and at the end of that summer holidays they said, "Oh, we'd really like you to stay, we'd like to give you a job." And I said, "Well, there's a little problem that I've got another 2 years of my degree to finish." So they ended up sponsoring me to finish that degree part-time, and that took another 4 or 5 years to get that done. It was really, really hard work. We got promoted all the way through when I was at Barratt, and I got to the point sort of towards the end where I couldn't actually find the time to go to university to do my studies. So by various means I managed to get myself through the final year, get the dissertation written, which I still have. And that was it. I had the degree. And then promptly left the construction industry as soon as it was done.
You're like, thanks, bye.
Yeah, I was off. The fees had been paid, and that was it. Thank you very much, guys. But no, I think they had their pound of flesh, and I got mine. So I think overall it worked for both parties. But
really beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing. So great insights into the start of Matt's journey. So Matt, briefly in your introduction mentioned that you are the founder and CEO of Track My Risks. Now that is quite exciting. And before we go into kind of briefly telling the audience about what that actually is, how did it all begin? Like, where did you get the idea from first?
Wow, it's a long story. I mean, I think the bit that we're missing at the moment is how this construction guy ended up in a technology business. So about 20 or so years ago, 18 years ago, I was working in a pharmaceutical company, ended up in corporate real estate, ended up in being headhunted to go to Regis, the serviced office company. And at that time, it was very much around the first .com boom. So I got started getting involved with tech companies, working with tech companies and understanding technology and how that meets with real estate, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Very long fast forward, ended up as a part of a business I ran, which was a commercial real estate company, getting involved in disaster recovery. Involved after the Buncefield oil fire, and then with helping companies to recover their operations is really where I started getting into business continuity and resilience, and effectively a service grew from that. Where we started helping companies to actually get their planning in place, because one of the issues that we had is they sort of said, well, if we lost our office space, this would be really inconvenient. And I'd say, okay, fine. How inconvenient would that be? And then they couldn't answer the question. So they'd say, well, we've got 300 people, but we don't really, and it was very obvious that the planning work hadn't been done. So started learning around and then really combining how can we use technology to solve that problem with that business problem is where Track My Risks started. So that was the early genesis of it.
And I remember you kind of, I met you in around 2014, 2015 time. And Matt was presenting, we were somewhere in Peterborough, in the middle of nowhere, and you did like the most amazing presentation. It was just pictures. And I was just wowed by that. And I remember that we started talking and you were telling me about this idea of Track My Risks. So you kind of realised this quite a long time ago.
We've been an overnight success. It's taken years. It's a marketplace that doesn't move very quickly and isn't particularly dynamic. So, with our approach to how companies understand and manage risk properly, we very much came at it from a sort of a grassroots perspective, in sense of we felt this was a mass market product. This is something that all companies of all sizes should be doing, or all organisations. So we've tried to simplify absolutely everything and make it very graphical, make it very easy, and to some degree sort of dumb the whole thing down. But what that's allowed us to do is look after thousands of companies simultaneously through our software platform. So that was the plan. We didn't sort of just go and chase a few corporates. It was very much, how can we provide a solution that 900 firms of tree surgeons could use when they're provided that through their insurance broker or through their regulator or whoever it is that's sort of suggesting that they plan more effectively. So it's you have to make things very simple and you have to codify things very, very well, which takes time and is a learning journey for everyone.
And I think that's a really good point that you picked up there, is having these ideas is great, but now in the digital age, we think that, oh yeah, I've got a great idea, it's going to take off tomorrow. We should have done that yesterday. But it's not, because we've got a good example sitting right next to us.
Yeah, you've got to put the hard yards in. I mean, it would be lovely to sort of invent the micro scooter or something like that that's just a viral success for 20 minutes. But the reality is, I think in this kind of market, you'll find everybody plugs away for a long time, and you've got to build competence and contacts and an audience. But the good news is, once people are on, they generally stay for a long time, and they're very, very loyal, and there's no reason to move. So yeah, it's good.
Fantastic. So going a bit further and deeper into your entrepreneurial spirits, which started at a very young age.
Yes.
So you're a natural pro at this. Visionary, because he already had this idea at 14.
Or incredibly stupid, one or the other.
But at 14, guys, whoever thought? I mean, I didn't think of those ideas. So, and you're sitting here as the CEO of your own company. One of the questions is, like, in your journey to get to this point, what has surprised you?
How time goes by so quickly, I think.
Okay.
Things that seem to me like that was 5 minutes ago I did that. You look back, I was sort of looking for this, sort of going back through the timeline, and I think it was, so the way I gauge this, I started my first proper company when my middle son was just born, and he's now in his first year at university, to give you an idea of scale. So that's sort of, but to me it seems like 5 minutes. But no, it's 18 and a bit years since I sort of gave up the regular salary. So yeah, it's been, but it doesn't seem like that. In some ways it does. It seems like a hell of a long time. In other ways it seems like 5 minutes. So yes, years go by very quickly.
And growth takes time.
That's what I keep telling myself, yeah. When I look at where I could have been if I'd have stayed and in the company I was in a pharmaceutical company, and taken the corporate package, yes, I'd probably be retired by now. But hey, you only get one go at this, I think. So may as well do something you enjoy.
Absolutely. And like, when you started this whole journey, obviously you were doing it on your own, and your founder, so with your business partner.
Yes.
And your company has grown significantly since.
Yeah.
How have you let go of the "it's my baby, it's my project," and then giving the empowerment to your staff to kind of get on with it and trust that? Is that something that has been easy for you, or has been a challenge?
I think it's easy if you recruit the right people.
Okay.
And we don't always get it right.
Of course.
So we have had some experiences where, we've made colossal mistakes with people.
Okay.
And then we have some other experience, more experience, where we've got really great people. So a classic example of that is in our software business is around our user experience, user interface designer, our designer, who is absolutely amazing. And although I try and interfere in that process or give feedback, I do it very much as a sort of a layperson, sort of saying, well, this is what I'm experiencing with customers. It's about trusting people, making sure you recruit the right type of people. One of the ways that we do that is by, we have our core values as a business. And although we might meet somebody in an interview and really like them, we then start looking into our core values of integrity, humanity, commitment, and ask questions around those to try and get the right type of person. So there's the technical competence, and then there's the behavioural or character traits. And I think go with your gut as well. I think if you feel you meet someone and you just think, can't quite put my finger on it, but I don't think they're right, normally if we'd have listened to that intuition, we would have made the right decision, and that's where we've made some wrong decisions. But yes, I think having people that know their area of expertise far, far better than you do, and not try to think, oh, I'm the founder, I know everything. I'm the. You just end up being a handbrake on the business. So I think we're always working. My co-founder and I would love to be in a position where we work ourselves into obsolescence within the business, because then we can sit back and relax and watch other people do work. But at the moment, we still are very actively involved, and can't see that changing anytime soon.
For long term, potentially.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Other things I want to do.
Well, that's great advice, because we don't really get to hear those kind of insights from, founders, entrepreneurs, from a CEO perspective about how to let go of elements of that control, really, and trusting the process. So really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, technology in business, essential or nice to have?
I would say essential, which you probably expect me to say that. Yeah. There probably are some businesses, I can't think of them off the top of my head, that maybe don't really need any technology. I don't know, a sort of a cobbler that works from a shack or something like that. But even now, with things like making tax digital,
Yes.
You've got to submit your VAT in a digital, so that there are, I think it would be really hard to escape using some kind of technology.
Yeah, definitely.
I think quite often from clients we work with, they don't necessarily think through the risk implications of the technology that they use, or really understand the technology they're using, or the value of that, even despite GDPR and all those other things. But yeah, generally love a bit of tech, but I'm not a complete geek. I'm not. I don't have the latest of everything, and I do like the simple life as well. So yeah, I'm not. I wouldn't know how to code or anything like that, but I know, I think, how to get the best out of technology and where technology is going, but not necessarily how to do it. And that's probably similar with my construction background.
Yeah.
I knew technically how to do everything, but I couldn't plaster a wall.
Okay.
Well, I could, but it would look like a rough cake, roughly rendered. It wouldn't be nice and smooth. But but I know the way that it should be done, and know what it should look like when it's finished.
Yeah. So Matt, we've heard so much amazing things about being really successful and driving your business forward and your entrepreneurial spirits. But what about the struggles and the hard things that actually no one tells you about? I'm really excited because he's agreed to share some of these things with us.
There are a lot of struggles. Most of them come down to money.
Okay.
I've done this two ways. I've done one business where I funded it myself from cash flow and grew it organically, and I've done this one with going out and raising investment from investors. Both of them have their challenges. What I would say about the reason we took investment for this business is we needed to spend a lot of money building our software.
Okay. Yeah.
And we just didn't have that money all the time so we raised about £1 million to get things going. And you sort of think before you've done it, well, I'm going to raise this money and there's no cash pressure, etc. The reality is it takes a lot longer than you think to raise the money, generally. There's an enormous amount of pressure to get it spent once you've got it.
Okay.
And then deliver on the numbers that you said you were going to do when you raised the money in the first place, before you run out of money and need to raise some more.
Okay.
So, and then with that, you also end up then with a lot of external investors, and not all of those investors would necessarily have the same view of the world or the same strategic aims as you do as the founders.
Right.
So it can get very tense when you have those differences of opinion, and things don't necessarily go according to how you planned them at the start, sort of 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So navigating that is actually very difficult. And sometimes I think, well, wouldn't it be great if I didn't have external investor pressure? But then you think, well, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now if I hadn't raised that money. So it's always a balance. So effectively, it's a bit like being employed. You have bosses because you've got to look people in the eye and say, yes, I have taken this investment money from you and this is what I've done with it and this has been the result. And then you start getting into issues where, after a period of time, where some investors want to get their money out and they want to go and invest in something else. And then actually providing that liquidity as a small company is really hard because you're not in a position to buy them out. So you start looking at different financing. Right. So it normally boils down to money.
Okay.
I find not so much the people side of things.
Okay.
That can be dealt with. And I think if you recruit the right people, that's not too bad. It's keeping enough cash in the tank to do what you need to do and survive as a business, because nobody's going to bail you out. It's you've either got to get investment or you've got to make sales to get the cash in, and that's quite a pressure.
If you weren't the CEO of Track My Risks currently, what role would you be applying for today and why?
That would be really difficult because I think having an employed role now, I think it would have to be something really different.
Okay.
And maybe I've sort of half fancy sort of working for the National Trust and running an island or something like that, you know,
Okay.
somewhere in the Outer Hebrides and you know, looking after the puffins and the cows and tourists in the summer, and then nobody
Okay.
around in the something really really
Yeah.
obscure and different to what I've always done. I don't know. It's hard to imagine
Yeah.
having a normal job,
Yeah.
working for somebody else. Yeah, I think it would depend. It's not something I spend a lot of time thinking about because it's
No.
not an option. But yeah, it would be something strange, or maybe an MP or something like that. But I think that
Yeah.
I'd need to be too accountable to my constituents, and I think that would get a bit annoying. I think I like to often disappear off and do my own thing. So yeah, I think probably something with a bit of seclusion, out in the wilderness, and I can grow my beard and become a bit of a hippie.
Great, love it. So, if Matt wasn't the CEO, this is what he would probably be doing, maybe. So, we've touched a bit on like what you would be doing if you weren't the CEO.
Yeah.
But in terms of career goals and what that business looks like,
Yeah.
what is that end goal for you and your vision for that?
So there's a number of ways of describing it, but you know, in terms of the uptake in what we do, where we help companies sort of understand, manage their risks effectively. For me, success looks like the fact that more than 50% of companies around the world have an effective plan in place and are resilient businesses.
Okay.
So, i.e., they're not in the minority, the people that fit that. So if we can be a part of making resilience accessible to the mass market, then to me that looks like success. So it's putting aside financial success and all those sorts of things. Because there's probably other things we could have done that would have made more money short term, would have been more lucrative, would have attracted a higher valuation, but feel very passionately about having dealt with so many companies that haven't got their planning right
Yeah.
and the impact that has on people. So this back to our humanity
Okay.
core value is saying actually most of those negative impacts, those human impacts, were avoidable if some planning had been done before the event. So how do we bring that ability to plan to the masses? How do we de-skill it, if you like, because not everybody can employ a resilience person or a business continuity person or a risk person.
Yeah.
And how do we stop people stepping in or falling down elephant traps of, you know, upsetting the regulator and being closed down or fined out of existence or killing people on their building sites or whatever, because most of these things are avoidable. But it's actually very difficult as a small company to, without paying lots of money, to get that advice because it's very siloed.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think getting people to use our technology and embrace it. It doesn't have to be our technology. It could be a spreadsheet. It could be whatever. But actually doing something about resilience. So really passionate about that sort of thing and preparedness, if you like. And it's a very strange, as you know, strange world to be in. But once you get into it, it looks very obvious to us.
Yeah.
But not necessarily obvious to people that are busy running their small accounting firm or their marketing company or their IT support company. It's they've got to pay the bills and recruit people and look after the day-to-day, not necessarily think about what they would do if it were all to go wrong.
It pays to be prepared, guys.
Sure does.
So, one of my favourite questions, and no, it's not the book's question just yet, is, well, it's all about resilience, buzzword. What does resilience, how does resilience work mean and look for you, especially in such a high demanding role? How do you manage that work-life balance in particular?
I think I've got better at it over the years.
Okay.
Whether my wife would agree with that or not, I don't know. Probably not. I think when I started, it was very, very difficult to switch off, and it was mind's going constantly. I think over time you realise you just can't sustain that level of, so you have to learn how to be able to switch off. It's easier to switch off when everything's going well. Yeah. Which in most small businesses it doesn't. There's a lot of time where things aren't going well. So it is a worry. But then an element of me looks and sort of says, well, I've managed to keep things going for the last 18 years, so you know, I think the next 10 years, 15 years should be okay, you know. So you get that sort of, I guess, probably element of resilience, but also confidence that you'll find a way through. And that's a key part, I think, of being an entrepreneur is finding solutions to problems that are seemingly impossible to solve. And that's probably why you've got that level of confidence and ability to self-harm, I guess, of why you go into this sort of thing, because it isn't easy.
No.
And it does take its toll on the people around you, especially if you let it. It's a vocation. You never really switch off.
Quite right.
So yeah, you do have to manage it very carefully.
What is some of the tips that you can offer any of our listeners or viewers who might be going through it or thinking about embarking on a similar journey to you?
I think do something that you understand deeply. What always really worries me is where you see these sort of programs of people that sort of say, you know, where our marriage is failing and, you know, we've got no money and we're going to go to France and remortgage our house and open a restaurant, even though we've never done it before. And you just think that's got to be a recipe for most people for a massive disaster.
Yeah.
So I think you're going to massively increase the odds if you do something that you understand.
Okay.
And you actually know there's a market for.
Okay.
Although you never will actually know until you try and sell something and get somebody to pay for it. But, you know, you've got a more than even chance of being successful in.
Okay, thank you. Has there, in this journey then, been times when you thought, oh, crap, what am I doing? Why did I do it? I just want to throw the towel in and forget about it.
You do have those dark moments. And I think I'm quite philosophical about it, because I always sort of think that, you know, in my world, everything happens for a reason.
Okay, I like that.
And I'll look back at something, somebody may have double-crossed you or defrauded you or let you down or whatever it is. But then I always sort of tend to think, well, I've learned from that. What have I learned from it? So I don't ever really see anything as a failure. And I think that's an intrinsic part of being an entrepreneur, I think, is that you take ownership of the problems, but you always say, well, that happened for a reason.
Okay.
What have I learned from it? How am I going to grow from it?
Yeah.
But it doesn't pay the mortgage, and it doesn't put a nice pension to one side and all the other nice things that we want out of life. So there's a lot of sacrifice as well, and you sort of hope that when you look back, it will all have been worth it. I mean, certainly from a life experience perspective, it's definitely been worth it. From a financial perspective at the moment, can't say that it's been worth it, you know, in comparison to what else I could have done.
Okay.
But yeah, you know, it's, if you can pay the bills and do what you need to do and bring your family up, then give it a go, I think. But what I would say is it's not for everybody, and you've really got to think long and hard. And it's a bit, what it's like is a bit, I would think, is a bit like trying to explain childbirth to somebody that hasn't given birth.
Right. Okay.
And I haven't given birth, but you could say it's all very painful and whatever, and but you don't, unless you've done it, you don't actually experience it. So I would say it's something that it's not an undertaking to go into lightly. Is what I would say. Starting a business, if you want to do something other than selling your time by the day as a consultant or something, that's a bit lower risk. Get a contract, but if you want to start raising money, employing people, building software or whatever it is, think long and hard before you do it. But if you do want to do it, just give it a go, I would say.
So just, fantastic advice from Matt so far on kind of looking at the realness of it, and that's what I'm all about, and that's what the Resilience Pod is all about. What kind of characteristic traits do you need to then be that type of person? Is there something you need? And then do you need to go and have an MBA or a business degree to be able to start your own business and do those kind of things? Or is that just, universities and colleges trying to sell us something that we don't need?
Well, it's a bit difficult. Although I have a construction degree, prior to doing that, I actually studied for 2 years business and finance. I didn't do A-levels. I did what was then a BTEC in business and finance.
Okay.
So that was my sort of formal business training at a very young age. I think back to my earlier point of being not necessarily an expert, but knowledgeable in an area that you're going into. So if you're going to start a business and you really know nothing about the mechanics of running a business, I'd say that's probably a bad thing. I've worked and met a lot of people that have MBAs. Some of them are very good. Some of them have still got no common sense, but know a lot technically about the mechanics of business, but couldn't necessarily deliver it, and may well be stuck to a thesis or a hypothesis that for too long. And I think a key part, I think, of being an entrepreneur is you need to be able to pivot and listen to the market and change and adapt. And we've been through lots of trials and tribulations and turns along the way with what we do, around the same theme, because you try something, it doesn't work in the market, you don't stick to it doggedly, you try something else and you keep adapting. So I think you've got to be, by nature, probably a bit erratic, and have the ability to inflict harm on yourself on a regular basis, and those around you. You've got, I think you've got to have the right character type. I think, otherwise it could all get a bit wearing. And again, I will repeat, this isn't for everybody. And there's nothing wrong with having a job where you get paid a salary at the end of the month and you have an employer and all that. I'm not decrying that at all. I can completely understand, but I think it's about finding what's right for you as a person. And I would say it's the minority of people that want to do what I do and enjoy doing what I do because of the human toll it can take on you and your family.
And it's what I'm hearing is finding your why, isn't it? And
Absolutely.
Understanding that, and also what I'm hearing from what you're saying is be committed in your approach. Be committed, but flexible in your approach.
You have to be flexible, but you've also got, I think, to have the commitment to it that you believe you're right when all around you are saying that you're wrong. And some people will directly say to you, you are completely wrong, you're mad, this is never going to work, or whatever. Most people, the English way is normally to politely ignore you, listen and nod and not actually tell you what they're thinking. But sometimes within that, the reasons why people are saying that you're wrong, there might be some grains of reality in that, and sometimes you are actually just wrong. And it might take you a lot longer to realise you're wrong than the person that was reviewing you. So I think being open to that criticism, but knowing when to ignore some of it is really an important skill to learn as well, and not take it too personally.
Fantastic. That is some valuable insights. Please do take note of that, because I definitely will be. So thank you so much for sharing. Now, guys, time for my most favourite question. And I know I said that earlier, but this is all about books. And I've asked Matt to bring his favourite book, and he's got it with him.
I have. And I must just say, this was really difficult because I've got lots of favourite books for different reasons. But I thought because of the context of what we're talking about, I would bring a business book. And it's The Age of Context by Robert Scoble and Shel Israel. And this was when we were starting this business, sat down with my co-founder Richard Carman, and we both read this book and said, this needs to be at the core of what we do. So we applied what we learnt in The Age of Context to the world of resilience, crisis management, business continuity, and that's what formed what we're doing now. So that was the key part of the start of this business, when we said, look, what are we going to do together? So so this is where it all began. One of the places it began.
So just show our audience and remind us what the title is and who it's by.
So it's The Age of Context by Robert Scoble and Shel Israel.
Wow, a powerful book, because it underpins your business values and really got you motivated to start. That is fantastic.
So where context is really important, if we apply that to business continuity and resilience, is that if we imagine it's the third Wednesday of the month, Company X in Basingstoke have lost power to their office. Actually understanding, well, what does that mean? What processes are impacted? What's the business impact right now, because it could well be very different on the fourth Wednesday of the month, because, for example, they'd be running payroll at that point. So in terms of recovery and being able to turn that into data was at the core of what we do. And one of the things that we set out was to say that if we were to receive a telephone call from a client that said, this has happened, how would we help them through that issue? So in terms of context, if we look at this in the medical sense, we've mapped the genome, we know about DNA, we know about how people are wired, we know what the heart and lungs do, we know what's core. But if you actually apply the important sort of organs of a business and sort of say, well, actually, between those 5 accounting companies, they might have different processes. So actually, what is seemingly really important to that one isn't actually important to the other one. So we need to be able to map the DNA of a business. And that's what we do within our platform. And then that allows either us or anyone else that's involved with that client to be able to give contextual advice. And where sensors come in is at the moment, if you rely on somebody saying, oh, it's all gone dark, the power's off, and reporting that, wouldn't it be good if sensors could do that for you anyway? And then you can start to build a machine response to these problems. And you can start gathering data about how often these problems occur, and you can start looking at better what's the effectiveness of mitigations. And this is where the whole sort of our vision sits of, we've called it various things, but one of the things we played was with the worry engine, you know, this sort of machine that is constantly worrying about the business and keeping it alive and resilient. But you need to start capturing data to be able to do that. So that's sort of the journey that we're on. And it all came from here as an idea.
Amazing, thank you. Okay, so Matt, where can our Resilience Pod viewers, listeners and readers find you?
Okay, so probably 2 best ways are LinkedIn or Twitter.
Okay.
So LinkedIn, if you just look for my name, which is Matt Hodges Long, HODGES-LONG. And I think there's only one of me, thankfully. So you're not going to trip over too many. So find me on LinkedIn or on Twitter. We're at Track My Risks. Or at Continuity Partner PTNR, but I think you'll link to that. In the notes. So yes, and if anybody wants to just, tell me I'm wrong, ask me a question, spend lots of money with us, whatever you want to do, then please feel free to make contact, and always happy to have a chat.
Fabulous, thank you. We have now unfortunately come to an end of the show and our time with Matt. I have so many more questions for him, but we'll have to wait until another time. He is flicking through the mood book to tell us how he is feeling now the interview and our conversation is over. So I think he's found one.
Inspired.
Inspired. Yeah. Why are you feeling inspired after this chat?
I think it's always nice to do this kind of thing and talk about the journey, because it's very easy to get sort of stuck in the day-to-day and making sales calls and speaking with customers, which is all great, but actually to get out and sort of think a bit more deeply about why I do things or what's worked well and what hasn't. There's lovely music playing in the background. It's all very relaxed and sort of recharged and ready to go and build some more product and help some more customers. So yeah, it's great. So it's an inspiring morning. So thank you.
Great. So Matt is feeling inspired. Thank you so much for coming on the Resilience Pod today and sharing your amazing insights. It has been fantastic, and I'm sure our audience will feel the same. Guys, thank you to everyone, each and every one of you who has tuned in today, whether you are listening to us or watching us on video. I am truly grateful. Stay tuned for more amazing real models in the industry, and don't forget to subscribe to the Resilience Pod for first dibs on all this new content. So guys, until next time, take care and see you soon. Bye.